In the shadowed forests of Karvann, where the trees rose like twisted sentinels and the air seemed thickened by whispers, there lived a girl named Dara. She was just 17 and carried a sorrow that fit her like a second skin. Loss had defined her, a mother lost to plague, a brother claimed by the claws of a beast, and a father who drowned himself in the bottom of a bottle, unable to face the galaxies of grief. The villagers whispered about her, some with pity, some with contempt. They called her unlucky, a curse. The weight of these whispered words pressed her toward the night, where no judgments lived, only the rustling of a wind that knew her name. But Dara did not pity herself. She only envied the distant flicker of happy lives, children playing under golden sunlight, mothers singing lullabies, fathers strong with their laughter. That was what drove her into the deepest depths of Karvann's forest, the forbidden grove where only fools and hunters dared tread. Stories warned her of the Grove of Nysrith, the place where existence bent itself sideways, where the gods had trapped the exiled sorcerer long ago. Dara was neither fool nor hunter. She was desperate, and desperation made her bold. It began innocently. Dara sought small remedies, a chant for luck, a protection spell to keep starvation at bay. She didn't want revenge at first. The thought of turning her misfortune outward, of wielding her pain against those who scorned her, was a flicker in the corners of her heart, unacknowledged but growing. Those first attempts amounted to nothing. Her chants yielded nothing but silence, as if the darkness didn't even deem her worthy enough to respond. Until she bled. It was an accident. Her hand slipped while carving symbols, clumsy as she'd only half understood the descriptions she found in fragments of discarded texts, and the blade pierced her skin. Blood dripped onto the rune carved into damp earth. The forest shifted around her, a quiet that was just too quiet, too loud. Then, from the shadows soaked in the air, whispers began, 1,000 voices murmuring from the unseen depths of the grove. The magic responded. Dara didn't run. Fear wasn't what claimed her as the whispers built into symphonies layered beneath human comprehension, weaving promises and warnings into a thrumming awareness. A tendril of night, oily and crimson-veined, reached toward her and wrapped around the cut on her hand. It stung in the way fire stings. It wasn't pain exactly, but transformation. She gasped as it burrowed beneath her skin, an intrusion both intimate and alien. And yet it didn't feel entirely wrong. In that moment, something inside her cracked open and began to hunger, to crave, to stretch toward the void these whispers promised. The dark magic operated on different laws from the world Dara had known. It spoke through sensation rather than logic, images of burnt skies, rivers running backward, the sound of laughter dissolving into screams. It required sacrifice not just as payment, but as a declaration. Its power did not serve those unwilling to embrace its appetite. Dara learned quickly. Nothing could be gained without giving up something of equal weight. She started small, a lock of hair for sharper wits, fingernails buried under moonlight to siphon a predator's instinct. Her sacrifices opened doors within her, tightening her connection to the grove. The power flooding through her veins grew deeper, darker, seductive. But each spell left her feeling lighter in ways that weren't freeing. Instead, there was an emptiness, like something intrinsic. Her humanity, perhaps, was unraveling thread by thread. Dara did not mind. You see, beneath Dara's search for safety, for relief, for something tangible to shield her from the world's cruelty, there was a hunger rooted far deeper. She wanted control over her misery, over those who dared overlook her sorrow and stamp her into anonymity. This realization came slowly, creeping up like a shadow that had always been there, but had waited for her to acknowledge its claim on her identity. She didn't want just a better life. She wanted a world reshaped to her liking. a world where pain didn't exist for her, but belonged to others. At first, that whisper terrified her, but terror too was something she learned to twist into blades wieldable by her magic. Fear became strength, then certainty, and her mastery grew. One night, when the moon hung thin and sharp above her, Dara reached toward something the dark magic told her was possible, something so vast she hadn't dared touch it before. The final spell called for sacrifice, unlike anything she had yet offered. As she stood beneath the looming canopy, where the branches clawed toward the void, she realized what it was asking. The grove wanted her soul. Not in fragments this time, all of it. The drops of it she had been leaking were sufficient only for smaller mysteries. To seize control, to truly reshape existence according to her will, she would need more, and more meant everything. She dug her nails into her palms and shivered as the spell took shape in swirls and symbols she could barely describe. It wasn't language, but violence, bending the universe in unnatural ways. The whispers grew deafening as the tendrils spilled forward, wrapping around her body. Her memories flickered behind her eyes, her mother coughing, her brother screaming, her father slurring words she could never quite forget. One by one, these fragments unraveled, even as Dara told herself her sacrifices were necessary. She wanted the power. She needed the clarity. And then it arrived. Her body changed. The spell remade her, a shell for something monstrous. Her skin didn't quite fit anymore, stretched over bones thrumming with the energy she'd summoned. Her eyes were blackened, glowing faintly with the crimson reflection that pulsed like light through arteries. The whispers faded, replaced by the awareness of what she'd done. Dara could feel every thread of the world's existence, could pluck or knot them according to her will. And yet she didn't feel triumph, just hunger. What did Dara do with her power then? She didn't burn the world outright as villains of simpler stories might. That wouldn't satisfy her. The memories of the shadows whispered to her, make them understand, make them bow. She returned to her village as the wind howled behind her, carrying a presence that made those who saw her retreat, without entirely realizing why. Dara was radiant in the way broken glass shines, a beauty jagged and dangerous. And here, this moment, is where her motivations reached their climax. Her actions stripped away any ambiguity of innocence. Dara spared no one in her village, but offered them a new kind of existence. Pain, she whispered to those who ran. Pain reminds you. It binds you in its clarity. Pain is worship now. Worship me. What they felt then was not mere agony beneath her fingertips, but revelations designed by cruelty. Each person fell before her, begging for release they would never receive. It wasn't revenge. This was Dara's expression of her reshaping, a world sculpted where suffering became currency she could control. The grove, far behind her, trembled, not from weakness but satisfaction. Dara's desecration fed it. She had become its instrument, its proof that darkness answered prayers even where light failed. But what of Dara? Did she receive joy after bending the village, and soon every corner within reach, to her will? It is hard to say. What sustains hollow hunger once it consumes everything? Perhaps that struggle awaits her, a crescendo undone by her own cruelty. For now, though, the fractured gods, watching her from scattered shards of eternity, simply whispered their consensus across what remained of existence. The world had birthed its monster.